Hello everyone and welcome to this video on API testing from beginner to expert. I am Rajni Bajpai and today we are going to learn about APIs and understand how to test them effectively. Let's get started. Here's a quick look at what we will be covering today. First is what is an API, then importance of API testing, after that HTTP methods, and fourth we will discuss about HTTP status codes and headers. Each section is crafted to help beginners build a strong foundation in API testing. First topic is what is an API. As you all know, API stands for Application Programming Interface. It is kind of a middleman that allows two different systems to talk to each other. Let me explain with an example. Suppose you are using a food delivery app like Swiggy or Zomato. You search for pizza and within seconds you see a list of restaurants, prices, ratings, and estimated delivery times. Here behind the scenes, your app sends a request to the server using an API. The server processes it and sends back the data again through an API. Another example would be, let's say you log into a website using your Google account. That login happens through an API that connects the site with Google's authentication service. So API testing ensures that this kind of data exchange is accurate, secure, and fast. It checks whether the API sends the correct data and handles every error properly when something goes wrong. Now, importance of API testing. Why should we test APIs? Because APIs are the backbone of modern software systems. Here's why it matters. One is it enhances product quality. So if API fails, the entire system might break, even if the UI looks perfect. Next is it boosts performance. You can test how your API perform when thousands of users are accessing them at the same time. Third one is it catches bugs early. So APIs can be tested before the front end is built, helping catch bugs early in the development cycle. The last point is it reduces costs and time. Automated API testing means faster release, fewer bugs in production, and lower maintenance costs. In short, API testing saves time, money, and customer frustration. Now, there are multiple HTTP methods used in API testing. When testing APIs, we use different HTTP methods depending on the type of request. Here are the most common methods with examples. First is the GET method, which retrieves data. For example, getting user details. Suppose we send a GET request with parameters like user/101. It will fetch the data of user whose ID is 101. The whole data for user 101. Second is the POST method, which is used to send data to create a new resource. For example, if we send a request with parameters like /users and in the body section of the request we send like name is Rajni, email rajni@gmail.com, it will create a new user with these details. Then we have put method, which replaces an existing resource. For example, when we send request with parameters like /users/101, it replaces all user data with new data for the user whose ID is 101 again. I am giving all the example for user with ID 101. Then we have the patch method, which updates part of the resource. So here what is happening? Put method replaces an existing resource, the whole data of existing resource, and patch Patch method updates only part of the resource. For example, we send a patch request like slash user slash 101 with data like email is rajninew at gmail.com in the body section. Obviously, this request will only update the email for user whose id is 101 again. Okay. Then delete method is used to remove a resource. For example, when we say forward slash users slash 101, it will delete the record of user whose id is 101. The last one to discuss is head options, which returns headers only, no body. This is useful for checking if a resource exists or not, and options tell you what methods are allowed. Okay. So these methods form an action for API communication. Let's move to HTTP status codes and headers. When you hit an API, the server responds with a status code. In other words, we can say status codes are returned by the server in response to a request, and they are grouped as the listed ones. First one is 1xx, which represents informational, so the request is received and being processed. 2xx represents success. Some examples are 200 OK, which means everything went well. For example, you request a user profile and it comes back with correct data. In that case, server will send a status code 200. Another example is 201 created. It is used after creating a resource. For example, new user is successfully added. In that case, server will send 201 status code. Then we have 3xx redirection. It tells the client to go elsewhere. Examples are 301, which means moved permanently, and 302 is found. Then we have 4xx client error. These mean something went wrong on the client side. For example, 400 bad request. The request is malinformed. For example, sending an invalid JSON. Then we have 401 unauthorized. It means you need to log in. Maybe your token is missing. 403 forbidden, which means you are logged in but don't have permission to access the system. Then we have 404 not found, which means the requested resource doesn't exist. Next is 5xx server errors. These are issues on the server side, like 501 internal server error, which means something went wrong on server, or 503 service unavailable, which means the server is temporarily down or under maintenance. You can say status codes help you to interpret the result of every API call. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe and share it, and stay tuned for more practical API testing content. And you can comment if you have any query. I will definitely answer it. Thank you so much.